This is part 2 of a reading from the transcript, Richard D. Heffner's interview with Heffner-Friendly, who pioneered the television documentary with Edward R. Murrow. And Heffner goes on to say, but isn't that the point, that we frequently say it is unacceptable about the homeless, about television, etc., but we're not willing to do anything? And Friendly says, but we accept it, that's right, because we're greedy, all of us. Heffner says, so you're talking about a profit-driven society, right? Yes, Friendly answers, but it does not have to be imposed on everything. It isn't imposed on our great universities. It's not imposed on our high schools. It's not on our, well, leave it at that. It's not on our universities. Why do we let this happen? Why do we let an instrument of limited access, television, why do we let that get into the hands of profiteers? Heffner says, well, because we didn't listen, by God, to Herbert Hoover, who was shocked at the very thought of advertising in a university. And television as a university. You say, I just don't believe it has to be that way, when the evidence is so clear before us that within the context of what you describe as commercial television today, as you say, it goes down the drain. Well, Herbert Hoover said it would be terrible if we let this great instrument get out of hand. But we have. I'm very worried about it. But still, I'm an optimist. All I know is that I've been better in my life asking questions and answering them. I have a motto. I repeat at all the seminars I'm involved in. I say that my job is not to make up anybody's mind, but to make the agony of decision-making so intense that you can escape only by thinking. I want you and your viewers to think about this awesome dilemma and what we are going to do about the magic of television, which has turned into something that we should be ashamed of. It's a harvest. Television is a harvest of greed, period. Heffner says, Fred, let's talk a bit now, not about the media moguls, but about the practicing journalists themselves. If you were giving advice to a friend, to someone just coming into the world of public affairs, broadcasting, wouldn't you leaven your advice just a little bit with the warning, beware of the journalist, because he or she has a personal agenda and selfish motives far beyond a noble search for the truth? I think that what I would tell a journalist today, answers Fred, is that your job is to portray a picture of reality on which the citizen can act. That's a quote from Walter Lippmann in a marvelous book called Public Opinion. A picture of reality on which the citizen can act. The reason there's a First Amendment, the first item of the Constitution's Bill of Rights, is that the Founding Fathers knew that a democracy without a well-informed public was a tragedy or farce, or both. Along with Madison, I believe that. My mother told me only one false thing in her whole life. She said, son, what you don't know can't hurt you. She was wrong. What we don't know as a nation and as a citizen could kill us. What we don't know about the environment and the greenhouse effect and arms control, what we don't know about potholes or bridges in New York can kill us. We need to have a well-informed America. The reason that the Murrows and the Lippmans have a place in history is that they help democracy work. They help make people be better informed. Let's take public health. 3 centuries ago, there was no such thing as public health. And then Jenner, a doctor in London, discovered that smallpox, or some disease, was passed around by people drinking out of unsanitary water pumps. So he cleaned up the water pumps. Now, he didn't just do that for the rich people who could afford it. They had to have something called public health so that the poorest of the people of London would be protected from whatever the disease was. That's how the whole philosophy of public health in our society works. Move that to journalism and public information. Everybody's vote is equal to mine and yours. But if 80% of the people don't read a newspaper or watch a decent television program, that's an upsetting thing to democracy, because their vote counts just the same as mine does. I want everybody to be informed. And the way you inform people today is in newspapers and in television and radio. And if we fail to do that job, either because we're lazy or we don't want to spend the money or we think that we want to read more about some celebrity than they do about nuclear arms control, then we put the nation at risk. Heffner says, do you, Fred, think that they want to read more about celebrities than about nuclear arms control? Fred answers, I think gossip has always been around. People say to me, Fred, aren't you an elitist? Yes, I'm guilty of being an elitist. But I would also say that if you let people just eat junk food, that's what they're going to want. If you teach them that nutritional, healthy food is better for you, they'll eat the better food. I think you can sell junk news, just like you can sell junk food, but it's dangerous to the health of the American democracy. And to the extent that you can do anything about it, I'm going to try to educate students at Columbia and other places where I teach, journalists capable of explaining complex issues. What do journalists do? They explain complicated issues. You can't explain something you don't understand. We need to understand these complicated issues much better. We need to know about Eastern Europe, for example. I hear radio and television reports from Poland, Czechoslovakia, from Romania, and I want to weep because half of them don't know what they're talking about. There's no sense of history. I was educated in the late 1930s, much of it on radio, when Edward R. Murrow, whom I didn't know in those days, and Raymond Swing and William Shirer and Eric Sevareid were broadcasting from London during the Blitz, from Czechoslovakia when Thomas Masaryk was president, and Bennis was there. I remember the Anschluss. I remember the fall of Poland. I remember all those details. I remember what the Third Reich did to civilization. That's why I want people who are broadcasting today and writing for newspapers to explain how World War II came about, how the Treaty of Versailles in 1919 created Adolf Hitler, how the Third Reich grew out of the discontent of those people. I don't hear any of this because the news is told to me in 40-second sound bites. And that's the end. Thanks for listening. The end of part 2. The end of the excerpt from this book, this interview with Fred Friendly from Richard D. Heffner's The Open Mind series, which has been collected as A Conversational History of Modern America, published by Carroll and Graff, publishers of New York. Thank you for listening.